three NA teams were in action. A 1-2 record overall. Let's begin with TSM. They lost to LGD Gaming. This was a rough one. This was not fun to watch. There were some bright spots, sure, here and there, Tyler, but overall, this was probably the most soul-crushing defeat. Well, maybe a TL and Machi, but like this was definitely one of those like Shang Tsung steal your soul kind of losses for NA fans.
It was more so that, like, if you watch the draft, it was very clear that TSM was giving the car keys to Bjergsen, where they basically, put their arm around Bjergsen and said, "This is your game. This is your time, son. You're one of the best mid laners in the world. We believe in you. You're our ace. You're a captain. You're everything to TSM. You're the face of the brand. You're a literal co-owner of the brand. This is your game. It's a do or die game. You lose, you're pretty much out of it for all intents and purposes. You win, the group becomes wide open. You have a good chance of getting out with a good week 2. They blind pick the LeBlanc. They blind pick the high-risk assassin, high reward if things go well. Blind picking it, and it was a lot of trust in the Bjergsen. I appreciate it. I appreciate the gung-ho attitude where they basically said, we're going to go down fighting with our ace on a carry that he believes he can carry on. And then, like, 20 seconds in the game, Doublelift dies in bottom lane, and everything kind of falls apart from there. And it was a bad start. And I give credit for TSM for being proactive. They played a very proactive game where they had the Shen, Broken Blade with the Shen in the top lane, flashing forward, ulting, doing these combos, getting these picks, trying to find advantages on the map when they could. But these small mistakes that have been plaguing almost all the North American teams, outside of, a few FlyQuest games and today's Team Liquid game, almost every single game for North America, we've had weak level 1s, we've had really weak early games, and they've fallen behind. They've just been falling behind so often where a lot of these North American games, it's a 2-3K goal deficit by like the 10 to 15 minute mark, and it just snowballs out of there. And it was very similar today with the LGD game where TSM had openings, but those openings were quickly shut down, and they fell so far behind so early. And Doublelift got back into the game, and I give him credit for not just tilting on the face of the earth, dying so early in such a pivotal game, but they never could just find their bearings. And the Bjergsen LeBlanc pick just did not work out. It did not have the intended effect. It needed to have a bigger impact so much earlier on. And there was one point where it looked like maybe TSM could do something where they got a pick in the mid lane and they go over to Baron, and Bjergsen has the perfect flank up with LeBlanc to pop Kramer, the AD carry of LG Gaming. And I think every TSM fan, I think every North American fan, I think any fan everywhere was just like, this is the moment. This is the moment where you pick this champion. This is the moment. This is where it all comes down to. Bjergsen jumps in, gets the kill, gets the assassination. It goes from a 5v4 to a 5v3, secure the Baron, and the game swings entirely into TSM's favor. Bjergsen misses almost every ability, whiffs everything, essentially ending that attack. They have to pull off Baron so they don't all die. And from there, it just was them just running up a hill and just never finding any sort of footing in the game.
Yeah.
And they were always chasing. It was always TSM chasing the game from the start of the game to the end of it. And it reminded me of the Fnatic game where they were chasing the game from the beginning, and the Gen G game where they were chasing the game from the beginning because of their losing lanes. Every game so far, it feels like TS has been chasing, and they've had a few moments of brilliance. They had in the Fnatic game where I feel like they had a lead for a tiny bit for maybe 30 seconds to a minute after Broken Blade had an amazing 1v2 reversal. But outside of that, they've been chasing the entire dang first week of Worlds. And now they sit here 0-3. They still have Destiny in their hands somehow. Somehow, because of how the group lays out, they still have Destiny in their hands. But one more loss to any of the three teams, they're officially out of Worlds 2020. They must 3-0 week 2 to force a tiebreak.
So that TSM, when they retreated from Baron, that moment, like I was in my head, I Will Remember You by Sarah McLachlan was playing in my head as TSM was retreating and LGD was chasing them down. And it was just a sad, sad moment. And there was a single tear rolling down my face, right down the cheek. As yeah, that was a rough one. That was very, very rough.
They went for it.
They went for it. You got to give them credit. It didn't work out. It was just very, very sad if you're an NA fan. So now TSM are 0-3. They're clearly at the bottom of this group, mathematically and spiritually. All is not lost mathematically. It definitely feels like all is lost, or at least in large part, to TSM fans. What is their, if even unlikely, path out of this group?
3-0. They have to 3-0, and then they have to win a tiebreaker. So they have to go 4-0 or even 5-0 to make it out of the group stage of the hole they've dug. They have destiny in their hands. If they go undefeated in week 2, they will make it to the top 8. They will make it to the playoffs, but they can't lose a single game. Genji, LGD, Fnatic, one loss, one bad early game, one bad level 1, and they're chasing again, and it's more than likely over. And I just think for TSM, you really see in this tournament so far, it's a jungle focused meta, and I think a lot of people are going to look at Spica and they're going to say Spica's not playing well. He's falling behind. He's not a top level jungler, and I do agree that he's not one of the elites at the tournament. But as we've seen, and I've talked about this with Team Liquid, the reason why Broxa was falling behind so much is because they weren't enabling him. They weren't fighting in the jungle for him. They weren't getting those level 1s off to give him a golden road for success. Very similarly with TSM, where not every level 1 is a gunfight or a fight to the death. Some of these games are just a lot more standard, like the game versus LGD, where they played very standard jungle openings. But I think the one thing that people are forgetting is I think the jungle support synergy in the jungle and just roaming around, and that pairing is so pivotal in this current meta, where the top teams, the top esports is the Damwons of Barrel and Canyon. Even G2 of Yenkos and Mickey X, like you have to have a strong roaming pair. Like, we'll talk about FlyQuest. I think one of the best things FlyQuest has is that Ignar and Centauran work really well together, and they pressure the map even when they aren't the strongest.
Before we get there, I want to mention, and I apologize if you hear some beeping, there's a truck right outside of my window, and I apologize for that. Our ESPN Esports Predictor, 44% of players picked LGD Gaming to beat TSM. Don't forget, you can go to ESPN.com/League of Legends Predictor, or if you have the ESPN Fantasy app, click on the Trophy tab. You can play along for free. You can invite your friends. You can create custom groups, and you can organize and take a look at who is beating whom. It is free to play completely. You can choose through groups, playoffs, and all the way to the finals. That is ESPN.com/League of Legends Predictor.